Awesome news from Avdiivka. Ukraine performs the counterattack right into this place, cutting the Russian positions out of their main supply line. It could be a great defeat of the Russian army in this place. Before, as you saw, they used the underground communication to advance to this place and just stack over there. And just after 3 days, Ukraine started to push them very hard. Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. So here's the actual situation for this minute. This is the Ukrainian counterattack vector. Now Russia tries to conquer it, but unsuccessfully. Ukraine uses tanks and many of the drones. It's a decisive battle for this area. Also, Ukraine attacks from this direction too. Yes, for now the outcome of this battle is not yet 100% in favor of Ukraine, but since our guys start this counterattack, I'm almost sure that it will be successful and we're gonna cut the Russian army from this place. But as you see, Russia has the other attack vectors. For example, here they were quite successful advancing to the forest using their infantry forces. In general, now Russia has more resources compared to Ukraine and their strategic goal is to take Avdiivka town under control. But for sure they will not be able to achieve this goal till the elections in the Russian Federation. That's the main aim of Putin, with which he fails. So for now the southeast part of Avdiivka is the hottest place from all of the front lines. But we also have some of the update from Liman direction. Russia tried to attack Yampolivka. Let's see the other source, the Maikovsk 73, and here's the big massive Russian attack, which basically failed. You may see many of the tanks, many of the armored vehicles, and all of them are just burning. Yes, Russia advanced a little, but they are unable to secure the ground, so the front lines, I would say, they're fluctuating. Ukraine indeed was successful in counteracting to the Russian assault. And again, Ukraine is using the FPV drones to target the Russian tanks. For example, this is the T-80 tank, which was kaputted with a single strike. The drone went between the turret and the tank base, the most vulnerable place for the Russian tank. So far, the FPV drones are the most precise way to deliver the shells right into the Russian vehicles. Without FPV, I don't know how would we stop the Russian assaults. And it is the best tool to target the Russian artillery systems too. You know that Russia intensified their attacks for the third day consecutive, but what they mainly gain is the huge losses. Yes, sometimes they may take some of the fields and that's it, but mainly losses and just losses. The mid-wave tactics doesn't work in a long-term perspective, and the Russian regular army is very clumsy about it, compared, let's say, to the Wagner army as it was before. The Wagner army also used the mid-wave tactics, but they were very smart with it. And basically they were more motivated and more professional compared to the Russian regular army. That's why only with Wagner forces Russia was able to take Bakhmut. And with all of their regular army they are unable to encircle or to advance to Avdiivka city, or Avdiivka town it's better to say. And their goal in Kupiansk, well, it's a very foggy target for the Russian army. It's too far away from the front lines. There were some rumors from the Ukrainian side and from the Western media sources as well that Russia might try to start one more attack on Kiev, or they might assault towards the Kharkiv city. I think both of those variants are unreal nowadays for the Russian army, because I know that they are in lack of the human resources. They need to announce a new mobilization, prepare their soldiers for this massive attack. So I don't think that it's the realistic scenario for them this year. We also have good news coming from the Kherson Oblast, the left bank of the Dnieper River. Our guys moved a little in Krinky direction, expanding the existing bridgehead. This information has already been confirmed even by the guys who are over there in Kherson Oblast. But no details have been provided, so our guys might move over here or here. I'm not sure the exact direction or the place of the bridgehead expansion itself. As you see, even right now we have some awesome news coming. It means that all of the Russian assault attempts towards the place are basically total failure. It shows that the bridgeheads in this place should exist, because they're really pain in the ass for the Russian army. and later could be used for the further advancement. Many of the Ukrainian media sources shared the information that Zelensky dismissed Zaluzhny from the army command. All of that information is confirmed to be fake. However, this information is still concerning. It shows the friction between president and the general commander. According to some of the insights, Zaluzhny was really proposed to leave his position, but he decided to remain. Yeah, for now those are just the rumors. I cannot prove those, but definitely there is the friction. According to our journalists from Ukrainskaya Pravda, they are very competent. They definitely have some of the insights, and people in the army, they perform the investigation about the corruption in Ukrainian army under the command of the previous defense minister Reznikov. Reznikov even tried to sue them, but unsuccessfully. After all, they were right. So usually they spread kind of the reliable information. According to their information, General Zaluzhny was called to leave his position, and as exchange he was proposed to be ambassador in some of the country. He refused. There is no any order about his dismissment, let's say. However, journalists say that Zaluzhny is packing his belongings to leave the office. Well, again, it's really hard to confirm, and we're gonna see the real picture in a couple of days for sure, whether General Zaluzhny stays in command or not. I believe that he should stay in command. He's really competent. Only because of him, Ukraine was able to stand the ground during the start of the Russian invasion, and because he insisted that Ukraine should change the strategy during the summer counterattack, Ukraine was able to save the army, because the counterattack really failed. General Zaluzhny changed the strategy, and Ukraine started to attack with the small groups, not with the long big convoys as Russia does right now. You see nowadays the outcome of those attacks. But why I'm sure that there is the friction between President and General Zaluzhny? Because they already showed it on the public during their press conferences, especially President Zelensky. Well, if you ask me, I support Zaluzhny because I think that he's really competent in his sphere. He just doesn't have enough tools to make all of his ideas to come true. Plus, there is some confrontation between him and some of the generals, like General Syrsky. We already know it. It's all in Ukrainian press. I'm not talking about it on my channel very often, but I just want you to understand the current situation about Zaluzhny. That's it. If General Zaluzhny is dismissed, I don't think it will be a good step for Ukraine. I think that in this case, Ukraine will lose more men and more ground, because for Zaluzhny personally, the lives of our soldiers really matter. He isn't a butcher like many of the Russian general commanders. No, he is really a nice person. He is on his place for sure. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry commented the situation. Dear journalist, we are telling you it is not truth. What is not truth? I mean, there is no word about Zaluzhny. What is not truth? Tell us exactly, because the story is quite long. They waited almost all the day and just during the evening time commented about it. President Zelensky himself in his evening address didn't say anything about Zaluzhny's case. So for now we take this information as a fake. And according to the latest information, the chief editor of the Ukrainskaya Pravda, which shared the information about the possible proposal for General Zaluzhny to become the ambassador in some of the country, says that President Zelensky didn't dismiss Valery Zaluzhny from his command, which is good. Alright, let's go to other news. There was the attack on Donetsk today, the Russian-occupied Donetsk. Russians say about the civilian losses, but here we see the military vehicle, and the other vehicles were also standing nearby, looks also like military. We may see it on their black number plates. Also, there were some of the pictures which I am unable to show you on this platform, how the Russian officers were lying near to the car, probably sleeping forever. They were even wearing uniform. It means that all of the Russian talks about the civilian casualties, well, maybe there could be also, but the target was the military one. We have some awesome news about the Russian funds which are now frozen in the European banks. A new mechanism of withdrawal of the profit from those funds is up to be introduced, which are still working and making money. Obviously, the best case scenario for Ukraine would be just confiscation of the Russian funds in favor of Ukraine, but it doesn't work like that for now, especially with the European banks. In United States it could work, but here no, only percentage. However, I still consider it as the great move forward. The Hungarian delegation went to visit Ukraine today in Uzhgorod, and it looks like Hungary will sign the deal for Ukrainian military support from the European Union. They're ready to do it because they do afraid to lose the veto right in the European Union. Many of the European officials say that enough is enough. We need to get rid of Hungarian veto. So Orban, after all, decided to support Ukraine in this case. It's good to see those dictators changing their mind under the pressure. The Ukrainian military intelligence representative Yusuf says that there will be exchange of the POWs between Ukraine and the Russian side in a nearby future. Those POWs that were in the list. He hasn't mentioned the surnames or the list itself, but I believe that after all our prisoners of war are alive, because Russia still is unable to present the exact evidence, so bodies are absent, and the communication group between Ukraine and Russia for exchange is still working. Again, there are some of the signs that NATO is getting ready for the possible war with Russia. The leaders of the NATO countries are really concerned. They think that they do not have lots of the time. As the time source says, not more than 3 years. Guys, do you really think that Putin is so crazy to attack NATO countries? Write me your answer in the comment section just below. And there is also one more question, whether NATO is ready to use nukes to protect, for example, Lithuania, Estonia or Latvia. You may also write your answer. I personally think that the probability for Russia to attack NATO countries is quite low, but we should prepare for this scenario too. That is what NATO officials are doing right now, performing many of the drills at the border with Russia, or Belarus, which is now also Russia. About the artillery shells and other munition which Ukraine requires, our Western allies in Europe and America require 2 more years to produce shells massively. It means that only after 2 years allies are able to compete with Russian production, so supporting Ukraine is crucial in a long-term perspective. A Russian Grey Cardinal Nikolai Patrushev, who is one of the main ideologists of the Russian peace and close friend of Putin, says that Russians should be ready for a long-term war, proxy war with West, as he says. Quote, many times the enemy comes to the Russian land with the sword. And now the United States of America, NATO and other satellites are using the hands of the Kiev's Nazi regime to perform the act of the proxy war against us and our people. The Anglo-Saxon world will not stop the efforts to destroy Russia, even if the hot stage of the war in Ukraine is over. So we should be ready for a long-term war, proxy war with the West. So Russia started this war, it's unable to achieve its goals, and now it blames West. All the time they blame West. This guy is now the Secretary of the National Security of the Russian Federation. Before he was the chief of the FSB, so I would say KGB. All of them are coming from KGB, including Putin, Patrushev, and all of that stuff. Their main goal is to restore the Soviet Union with its old borders, but it will never happen like that. I already told you in my previous video about the attack on the United States facilities in Jordan. The attack was performed using the kamikaze drones, I believe Shahed drones supplied by Iran to some of the proxy forces. 3 American soldiers lost their lives and many more were wounded, around 30 of people. And today the White House administration promised the firm response on that attack, but when and how it will be conducted, no one knows. Some sources spread some of the insights that Iranian officials could be targeted by special forces in Iran itself. We're gonna see. For now, Israel already responded. It targeted the Iranian advisors in Syria, instructors and other military servicemen of Iran who used to train the Syrian army, maybe even the drone operators. So Israel is the key ally of the United States in the Middle East. It is crucial to support it, but there are some of the politicians in the United States, especially in the House of Representatives, who doesn't want to support Israel or Ukraine, blocking the deal for both of the countries. Houthis continue their attacks on the United States military. Today, the vessel Luz B. Pillar was attacked in Aden Strait. According to initial information, the anti-ship missiles were used by Houthis. Many of the United States politicians are calling for the prompt action, and I believe that the United States will find out the way how to solve it. But it would be very hard to do without the actual ground operation in Yemen. The thing is that allies should use a very expensive weaponry to target Houthi forces, who produce a very cheap weaponry to target allies. Houthis are also able to hide the weaponry underground, so without stepping feet on their soil, it's very hard to hit all of their military infrastructure. Anyways, we'll see how it goes. The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz again calls all of the European leaders to increase the military support of Ukraine. Europe needs to help more, he says. I believe that we also need more Leopard 2 tanks, because many were disabled by the Russian fire or they just break down. And Leopard 1A5 tanks are unable to replace the Leopard 2 tanks. Russians are laughing at themselves in their Telegram groups showing those kind of the images. Those planes were just painted on the apron, as you can see. And even with this kind of the satellite image, you may identify the real airplane and the decoys. I wouldn't call them decoys, but just the painting on the asphalt. Even Russians are amazed with this art, saying that it is useless. Indeed, it is. Russia claims that they shot down the Ukrainian Neptune anti-ship missile near to Azov Sea. Clearly, it is some sort of the anti-ship missile, looks like the cruise missile, could be even a Neptune missile, but I don't know all of the details, just this video. Absolutely crazy news from the Russian Federation. Vladimir Putin was registered as the candidate for the Russian presidential elections. Impossible. How could it happen? Should be #1 news worldwide. My friends, please don't forget to press your big like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. Also, if you want to support my job, as usual, there will be some of the links in the video description just below. Thank you for your kind support. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.